Welcome to the most deleted, shadow banned, demonetized, censored, and trolled channel on social media. Recipient of the Patriot Warrior Purple Q Award. A pandemic of 100% fatal rectal emphysema is being propagated wirelessly by the new FBI in the Trump administration as Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, deers in the headlights, bewildered and frozen, rewrite the fucking deep state bullshit story they've been debunking for over 5 years. These two respected patriot truth-tellers have either been compromised, threatened, or have become members of the big club that George Carlin spoke of in his truthful jests, or are engaged in some really complex anti-psyop against the deep state, because all they're doing now is rolling around the old putrescent turd of half-baked, poorly choreographed horseshit we've been subjected to by the mainstream media since JFK. And now, as you will probably conclude from the interminable litany of what I believe to be a series of intentionally half-baked bullshit stories that wouldn't withstand a kindergartner's scrutiny, the purpose of the obvious bullshit and what the intelligence community calls in limited hangouts is to divert attention of citizen journalists to the fruitless task of debunking endless bullshit so that the sequence of facts exposing the crimes remains obscured. To effectively defeat these tactics and discover the truth, I must invoke my own personal axioms, which, when diligently followed, has led to all of the corruption that my close associates and I have uncovered since we've been on social media, and I've been involved in exposing corruption since 1995. The danger with the use of circumstantial evidence is that of logical gaps, subjective inferential links of low probability or insufficient degree, from the case People versus Klieg. A lie is a second postulate designed to mask a primary postulate, statement, or condition which is permitted to remain. The workability of a postulate is established by the degree to which it explains existing phenomena which is already known, by the degree that it predicts new phenomena which, when looked for, will be found to exist, and by the degree that it does not require that phenomena which do not exist in fact be called into existence for its explanation. Do not use your own standards, morals, or values to decide whether or not these things are possible for a human being, or the mere apparency of a human being to do. The unbelievability of a crime has been historically used to commit the most heinous atrocities ever conceived by the minds of demons, and to openly commit those crimes and atrocities right under the nose and in the face of an unbelieving public. Evil doesn't need a reason. All it requires is opportunity. You might be wondering why I titled this video DC Dung Beetles. The answer is simple, because Dan Bongino and Kash Patel are rolling the turds of the same mainstream media bullshit stories we've been hearing since 2019. I don't want to see any videos of how Epstein didn't commit suicide. Show me the coroner's photo of this piece of shit hanging from his non-existent bunk bed in special housing. Show me that photo or shut the fuck up.
Those two cases obviously are of significant public interest. I'm just telling you what we see in the file. I just want to be crystal clear on this. I am not asking anyone to believe me. I'm telling you what's there and what isn't.
Right.
There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does not.
There's video of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay. It was only one camera. There were there's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this, we are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him. Right. There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know.
I have a tip. I reported it to the FBI in Charlotte, North Carolina. Video and phone call are linked below. I reported it online. To this date, there has been no response.
But there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
For 6 years, we were told that the cameras failed and the guards fell asleep. Total and complete, utter fucking bullshit. Just because they say nobody was there means not a fucking thing. They had to wait 6 years to conjure up this bullshit story when we caught them planning his fake suicide in North Vietnam 2 weeks prior to his arrest at Teterboro Airport. Hello, this is Dave from Net4Truth USA, Inglorious Patriots. It is June 7th, 2025, and the time now is 01:37 hours Eastern Time, here in beautiful southern North Carolina. Well, the Epstein list of names has been released. It's all over the internet, no sense in duplicating it here. But what has yet to be divulged, despite months of effort on my part to disclose this information on YouTube, what you will see on the screen right here is the comments that I've left on every channel that I follow who has even mentioned Jeffrey Epstein. Google, who owns their tube, has done a fantastic job with their artificial intelligence to scrub every single one of these comments, no matter how I try to disguise it. I don't know if it's something that is particular to me and my channel, or if it's just caught and said, no, this is just too ground shaking for us to allow it to be posted. But it has been posted on my BitChute channel and my Rumble channel and my Telegram channel and my YouTube channel, among other places, that haven't scrubbed it. So what I am going to ask my listeners here to do is to go down in the description and copy and paste that thing and post it all over the place. Because if you say there was not a conspiracy to kill Jeffrey Epstein, if Dan Bongino and Kash Patel continue to insist on the absolute fucking bullshit that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide, I can tell you that there was a plot to off him 2 weeks before he was arrested at Teterboro Airport. So the first plot didn't work, probably because some people stood around a table smoking their big-ass cigars and ruminating the fact that the people ain't buying this fucking bullshit anymore, and decided to scrub it. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the video, back in 2019, Stoney's girlfriend typed in Jeffrey Epstein into Google's search engine. Not Chrome, but Google's search engine. The autocomplete filled in underground bunker after Jeffrey Epstein's name. At that point, nobody had any reason to type in underground bunker after Jeffrey Epstein's name, and therefore construct the autocomplete which is generated from people who are generically searching for something. So the autocomplete had to be rigged with Jeffrey Epstein and the following underground bunker, which took you to a video that said that Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide in a North Vietnamese war bunker on June 25th. And that link is down in the description with all the other videos, iterations of that one that I've posted. I'm not going to repeat it here. So go down and watch those videos. We have a plot to fake suicide a prolific chomo that has been involved in trafficking underage girls to every swinging dick that has any influence on this planet. And he has it on tape. Mountains of evidence. Hundreds of external disk drives taken from CCTV cameras packed in boxes and marked evidence taken out of Jeffrey Epstein's island and out of his house, and the markings that said evidence were not put there by the FBI, they were found that way. And allegations that he was working for the Mossad or some or other intelligence agencies or some shit continue, and I think are very plausible at this point. Think about it for a minute, folks. You are a financier. What are you financing? How are you getting the money? From who you got the money from? No fucking body knows. The guy who was the CEO of Victoria's Secret gave this guy a multi-million-dollar mansion in Manhattan for nothing. I wish somebody gave me a multi-million-dollar mansion for nothing. What do I got to do to get a multi-million-dollar mansion for nothing? I'd like to know. But all of this evidence that was taken off the island, all of this evidence that was taken out of his townhouse in Manhattan, all of this evidence that was seized from his ranch in New Mexico where he was supposedly trying to impregnate 20 girls a day to do some eugenic shit to implant his superior DNA into the gene pool of humanity. None of that shit has ever been found. And his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, is sitting in jail, sentenced to 20 years for trafficking children to? I'm waiting for the answer. Trafficking to whom? Where are the people that she trafficked to? Now, don't get me wrong, folks. If I'm convicted of selling drugs to somebody, if I have a whole shit ton of drugs and I'm going to sell them to somebody, they either send in an undercover cop to buy the drugs to have probable cause to go in and make an arrest, or they catch you in the act, they got you on tape, they got statements from multiple people saying this, that, and the other thing. And they do in Ghislaine Maxwell's case. But the perpetrators, the people who actually did the crimes, the people who actually took advantage of these innocent girls, where are they? Where are they? I'd like to know. I'd like to know. Nobody's saying nothing. And Trump's lawyers now are advising Trump to say and telling him that, hey, maybe you should pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. Wouldn't that be some that would be a shitstorm, wouldn't it? the demon rats would say, yay! I think. I don't know. But the rest of us would probably say, you pardoned her. First you convicted her for trafficking children, and then you pardoned her? Well, by law, she's not guilty because there was no testimony. There was no evidence proffered in court that she did anything that we know of. She just hung around with the most prolific chomo in U.S. history, probably. But that's neither here nor there. These types of allegations, first of all, in most states, have no statute of limitations, which I think is total fucking bullshit. Because 30 years from now, when you're the president, some bimbo could jump out of the woodwork and say, hey, he touched my titty 30 fucking years ago. And how are you going to prove it? You can't. So you should shut the fuck up then. You should shut the fuck up then. Because if it wasn't bothering you 30 fucking years ago, and you didn't say nothing, why should it bother you now? Because somebody's paying you to make that bullshit allegation. Somebody's paying you. And we know that they're paying you. But then again, that's neither here nor there. Child trafficking and human smuggling is bigger now than it ever was because of this medium right here, because of the internet. And back during Trump's first term, he shut down Backpage.com. And I happen to know somebody, a child who was on that website. And I'm going to leave that shit right there. Will Kanishi and I, who used to be a law enforcement officer, bounty hunter, exposed this shit a long fucking time ago. Go to my BitChute channel and go to the playlist, child abuse or child trafficking or some shit, something. You'll see it. And we exposed it. Schools are taking pictures of your children without your consent for the said purpose of safety. For the said purpose of, hey, if this kid disappears, we have a picture of the child who is allegedly missing that we could give to law enforcement. Well, you as a parent, don't you have pictures of your children that you could give to law enforcement if the child goes missing? You got to depend on the school to do it? No, a lot of these things are posted online on sites that are all over the place. We saw the Wayfair thing where they're selling tool cabinets that you can get at Lowe's for $150 for $20,000. And you're not just getting a tool cabinet, folks. We put the kibosh on that. And it's just, you think that went away? This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Selling kids, selling body parts, trafficking, human smuggling, multi-billion-dollar industry. And we should adopt Nayib Bukele's policy on child trafficking, human smuggling, and drug trafficking, where if you get caught, that's the end of you. We send you to El Salvador and we put you in C-Cut and you can eat rice and beans and tortillas with your hands and smell the farts of 80 other motherfuckers in a cellar with you for the rest of your fucking life. And that's too good for you. Because feeding you into a wood chipper would be more merciful and less expensive to the taxpayers who have to feed you and keep you in toilet paper and fucking rice and beans the rest of your fucking life. Miserable piece of shit. And what's coming over the border, fentanyl, the Chinese smuggling, now they're smuggling wheat pathogens, starvation viruses that attack the crops. They're killing more people than World War I and World War II combined with this shit. We're at war, and we're too fucking stupid to even know it. These people are killing our people. They don't have the fucking balls to pick up a weapon and come in here because they'll get their ass murdered. So they do it surreptitiously. They do it by spiking normal shit that people think is a marijuana joint. They smoke it and they fucking overdose on fentanyl. That's how they're doing this shit. They want to kill the population of the United States. Why? Because China bought the United States from the demon rats, and they want what the fuck they paid for. Do you get it? Do you understand now? The people who hold the Jeffrey Epstein videotapes from all the CCTV cameras he had spread all over the fucking place control this fucking planet. And it's about goddamn time that the politicians in this country wake up shaking in their boots, scared of the American people. Because there's going to be a straw that breaks the camel's back. They're trying to put white people against black people to start a race war, to divert attention from the crimes that they've been committing for the last 100 years in this country. Little and little, as Plutarch once said, you get to tolerate this thing, 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 this thing. Pretty soon, you're tolerating everything. They're in these schools convincing your children that they're the opposite sex and that they want to change. They call it gender-affirming care. And these little kids don't know any better. They might fall into that brainwashing thing. We took my nephew, my great-nephew, out of school because somebody rolled up to him and asked him what his pronouns were. And where there's one of these motherfuckers, you know there's a bunch of them. They're like viruses. They're not. They multiply. They propagate their satanic seed wherever they go. If you want to get rid of them, you got to do it. You can't do it piecemeal. You got to do it all at once. And like Bukele does, he arrests people. Yeah, there's some innocent people caught up in the shit. Sorry, that's the way it goes. That's the price you pay. The price you pay for freedom is sometimes you got to pick up a weapon and do some business. And I'm not the only one who said that. When you got people attacking your country, you're going to lie down and die? No, my friends. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. But I'm telling you, there is going to be a reckoning coming soon. Barring that, the United States will fall, and it will not be worth living here anymore. And it's certainly reaching that point. Yeah, it's slowed down by the deportation. What should be done is an ultimatum given. If you're here illegally, it doesn't matter who you are. If you're a member of a gang, if you're not a member of a gang, if you're not, it doesn't matter how long you've been here. If you have a job, if you run a business, I don't give a shit. If you are here and you are not a legal citizen, pack your shit and get the fuck out. Because when we catch you, and it's not if, it's when we catch you, there will be no trial. There will be no due process because you're not a citizen and you are not entitled. We will put you on a C-130 and we will send you to sewer-cide, where you will spend the rest of your life smelling the nasty-ass farts and body odor of 80 other motherfuckers in a prison cell with you. So, the choice is yours. You were warned. If you didn't heed the warning and you thought that you were immune, when we catch you, don't fucking complain. And if you're a politician who's enabling the invasion of our country, you are guilty of treason. And you should be taken out of your office in handcuffs, put on trial, and if found guilty, you should suffer the same fate that Mussolini suffered during World War II. We'll drag you through the street and hang you from a lamp pole. We'll have the whole fucking beltway lined with you sons of bitches hanging from lamp poles, so that everybody driving into Washington, D.C. or driving out of Washington, D.C. can see what happens to traitorous, scumbag, commie, Nazi motherfuckers. Thank you for listening. And just to bolster my facts here, the following clips are just a few from the entire MAGA community of people calling bullshit on the Epstein fake suicide.
Well, I just want to be crystal clear on this.
Go for it. Crystal clear.
I am not asking anyone to believe me. I'm telling you what's there and what isn't.
Right.
There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly.
It's always there's going to be a disclosure coming. So he doesn't want you to believe him, right? He's just telling you. Stop telling me stuff like this. Stop telling. I don't believe you. Arrest somebody. Arrest somebody. So, what is some of this information that's going to be coming soon, Dan? What is this?
We are working through some. There is video.
Got it. All right. All right. Now we'll all shut the hell up. All right. Sorry, Dan, you've redeemed yourself. There is video. They got it. It's coming in a few weeks. We just got to clean it up. No, don't touch it. There is no way this is going to help you, Dan. All right. Maybe I'm just hopped up on TWC's recharge and my brain is functioning at big brain levels, but I'm predicting the future here. There's no way this video is going to help you, Dan. We got to edit it. Don't edit it. Well, we're also going to release the unedited version. Well, then release that now. The whole premise is we can't release this video because it needs to be edited. How long is that going to take? How long is that going to take? How long does it take to Zoom? Don't do anything other than Zoom. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're asking for trouble. No one's going to buy any of this. This is going to make, you are really going to take anybody's faith in you and flush it right down the toilet with all of this. This is so stupid. So they got video. They can't release it because it needs to be edited, but we're also going to release the unedited version. Do that now. Release the unedited version now then. What is going, this is so stupid. Nobody trusts you. Nobody trusts you at this point. You're making it so much worse. Shut the fuck up. Stop going on television. This can all be, you can turn all this around. Arrest James Comey. Arrest James Comey. You'll get everybody's faith back. Nope, 2 more weeks. We'll release some grainy footage. Again, Okay, well, they got footage of him killing himself, guys. I guess I'll shut the fuck up then.
That is something the public does
There's
not
video of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay. There was only one camera. There were other. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release. That's what's taken a while on this.
How long is? Listen, guys, it's good. It's taken us 100 days to get this video of 6 seconds of Epstein pacing back and forth in his cell. Okay, so what he's saying makes no sense. Again, I'm hoping that the video is released and I'm proved wrong. I'd love to be wrong, but James Comey's FBI, that's full of liars. He just told you, right? They said he killed himself, right? And there's no video, okay? But now there is video. But there's not video of his cell. But there's video of the unit. Is it video of the unit while he's killing himself? No. Remember, the camera stopped working. So the cameras stopped working, but you got camera footage of the unit before he kills himself, not when he kills himself, and then after he kills himself, it's turned back on. But that's proof that he totally killed himself. Holy shit, this is dumb. This is not helping, man. This is not helping. And then there was video camera footage, right? Because there's video cameras in the bay. And then there wasn't because they broke with Comey. But then they have cameras that work sometimes, but not of the cell, but of the unit that didn't exist, but then now do exist, but don't exist when he was killing himself. But this is proof that he killed himself. Holy shit, man. Holy balls. That's not going to help. There's no way any of this is going to help. And it's just going to make you look worse, Dan. It's going to make you look way worse. But please, keep digging a hole because it's I don't know, it's at least funny to watch.
We are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him. Right. There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time.
Again, I don't trust you. I don't trust the video camera footage. No one's going to. There's no video camera footage of Epstein tried to kill himself 2 weeks before he successfully killed himself. But he was taken off of suicide watch. That makes sense for the guy who just tried to kill himself. And guess where there's no camera footage of that either, by the way, because James Comey's daughter destroyed it. So there's no video camera footage of the bay or his cell when he was on suicide watch for his first suicide attempt. But then totally trust us on this. It's a video camera of the bay. I don't know when that was taken. I don't know what any of this is. You don't have. Why do you have video camera footage of the bay, but you don't have video camera footage of the bay when he's killing himself? Why don't you have that? And if you do have that, then you would have video footage of him killing himself. But you don't have that. So you just have video camera footage of an empty fucking hallway? That's not proving anything. No, this is dumb. This isn't going to help you at all. This is making it way worse.
The thing in the clip is he says, we don't have the video of the act itself, but it's video from within the MCC, the Metropolitan Correctional Center. That shows that he was alone in his room and there was no one else around. There's no other forensic evidence, et cetera, et cetera. There's two problems. Sometimes partial transparency leads to further conspiracy. And I'll say full disclosure, I know Dan. I like Dan. I've been one of the biggest cheerleaders for Dan both before and during. I don't know Kash quite as much, but we were very, very excited to have Kash and Dan there. Like those are two of the, if you handpicked anybody to be deputy director and director of the FBI, it would be Kash and Dan. The problem is when you put out some information, it's gonna further other conspiracy theories. The question is, I've had the subsidiary theory, like, okay, if Epstein did it by his own hand, and when Dan comes out and says, look, I've got video, not of him doing the deed, but showing that he was alone, there was no one else there, and no one else could have done it, that's part of the conspiracy that a lot of people subscribe to, that Epstein was allowed to kill himself. How do you have the most wanted, the most politically relevant perpetrator in America at the time left alone 2 weeks after suicide watch with extra bed linens in his cell to take his own life when you are there to make sure that he doesn't take his own life. So it's nice. I appreciate that. People are going to also be a little skeptical that there's video now when we were told by the last administration that cameras malfunctioned and auto-deleted whatever evidence they had. So it will always raise more questions. The question is, from a PR perspective, how do you deal with this thorny issue? The other thing that I'm realizing now watching Dan is, he comes out and says, look, if any of you have any additional information, send it my way. We'll look into it, almost begging for an excuse to reopen whatever investigation he inherited from the previous corrupt FBI/administration. But taking Dan at his word, there's video that shows Epstein was left alone in his cell. There was no one else around. That is the conspiracy. How was Epstein left alone with extra bed linens 2 weeks after having tried to take his own life, immediately after having been taken off suicide watch by an unnamed psychiatrist? How was he given access to be alone, to kill himself? That's what we all want to know. If what Dan is saying is true, and nobody's going to doubt that what Dan is saying is true, would be tremendous. No one's going to doubt that. So, but it opens the door to the next level of the conspiracy theory.
This is a very interesting point, and it's a point that was backed up by Tucker Carlson. So, okay, if you're going to sit there and throw rocks at Kash and Dan, fine. We like Kash and Dan, and they've been friends of the show and have been on the show, and we know them to be trustworthy at the very least, and not to be idiots, right? You'd have to be very stupid to just come out and lie about these things, to reopen the cocaine case if it's gonna lead nowhere, or the Dobbs case if it's gonna lead nowhere, or January 6th if it's gonna lead nowhere. That's a foolish move to just reopen that stuff. It'll make you look dumb, and I don't think that they're dumb people. I know them to not be dumb people. Tucker Carlson back in 2022 went and did this investigation and said nobody went inside or outside of the block, level 9 of the Metropolitan Detention Center, where Jeffrey Epstein was kept. So no one was going in or out because there were hundreds, if not thousands, of cameras that would have captured, let's say, an assassin team, right, that was sent in to kill him. So that Hillary Clinton walking in a pantsuit and 2-inch heels cackling with a noose around, dragging on the ground, that we don't have on camera. It, however, doesn't preclude any interviews with the people that were on the cell block with Jeffrey Epstein. One of them, for instance, was a serial strangler, and was also like a Hulk-like thing-like bodybuilder.
I remember that picture. The guy looked like something out of a comic.
And nobody, according to Tucker's reporting, nobody interviewed anyone who was there with Epstein. And so what I would like to see is all of the available footage, and to see if were the cells left open? Could people go and murder? Could somebody go and murder Jeffrey Epstein? Could Jeffrey Epstein have paid someone to murder him? Meaning, like, if Jeffrey Epstein was told that you'd better get this done, or something worse is going to happen. I think there's still shades of gray here potentially.
Well, it's even a bigger problem than that, because first of all, it's been so long now that I ran a poll on Twitter. People are not even going to believe video if they see it. They're going to believe it's AI or CGI. So there's that problem.
Yeah,
but,
and Dan says we're fixing the video for you right now, and I'm like, don't say that.
We're living in a post-truth era. But let's just even take it at its face value. Epstein killed himself physically with his own hands. What Dan is saying is absolutely true. How is it allowed to happen? Because a LEHOP is as much of a conspiracy as a murder. So yeah, he was left alone in his cell 2 weeks after having been taken off, or immediately after having been taken off suicide watch, 2 weeks after having failed a suicide attempt, with extra bed linen in his cell, bed linens that are supposed to be thin as paper and not be able to support the weight of a body. And yet he still, if we take it at face value, was able to kill himself. That's the conspiracy. Who was he talking to in the month or two leading up to his death? They record these lines. So even taking it at its face value, he did it to himself with the sheets that were in his bed, his cell. How the hell did that happen in the first place? That's the conspiracy. But the issue is, the problem is, like, it's not the partial disclosure. It's that it's really a PR thing. There are so many people. This is sort of like Sandy Hook level conspiracy now, where there's some people who are going to go out with the most outlandish, wacky conspiracy theories. You'll never be able to get to them. But there are people who, will never believe that he killed himself. I personally don't. And I believe that even if he did do it by his own hand, but was allowed to happen, that qualifies as assisted suicide. And then the question becomes about the file. It's the biggest question, looking at the file that you've inherited from what we know to be a corrupt criminal organization. Literally, the FBI that they inherited is a Pandora's box of criminality. what faith does anyone or ought anyone have in that file that they're looking at? And then the question that I would have to them is, are they reinvestigating that file? Are they investigating the investigators or relying on the findings of people whom we know to be criminal investigators in the actual sense that they were investigators who were the criminals, not investigating crime?
Yes. I mean, we've looked extensively into this. Bill Barr, for instance, has a lot to hide here, as Bill Barr's father was the person who got Jeffrey Epstein's career started. And Bill Barr's father has very, very strange connections to Jeffrey Epstein.
They've got strange connections. They've got strange, literature proclivities. They're a bunch of freak perverts. This is the bottom line. If this was an extortion ring,
space relations. You ever read that? It's amazing. Like when the people who actually have gone down the rabbit hole here.
Oh yeah,
Bill Barr's father wrote an entire book about how you can control the whole planet through predator pedophilia, and how an elite group of people can control through abusing children. An elite group of people can control the whole planet through blackmail. They wrote it.
The problem is also that this, if it were in isolation and this were the only issue that Dan and Patel were talking about, it would be one thing. It comes on the heels of Pam Bondi saying, "I've got files that no one's ever seen. They're terrible." And then there's a big dud of the release that leads to sort of the embarrassment of the influencers who were attending there. Promises of disclosure of Epstein files, and now we're sort of here. So, it's people are getting maybe unwarranted, but they're getting frustrated, they're getting impatient, and they wanted certain results. There are certain litmus test issues here. The Epstein is one of them, and it's not something that people are going to forget about. But the main issue, these are follow-up questions that I would have had, is what file is Bongino and Patel relying on? If it's the findings of the criminal, not James, it was Andy McCabe at the time. If it's the findings of the previous criminal FBI that we now know were actually hiding documents from the current FBI, how reliable is that file? Are they reopening an investigation into that file? And if Epstein did in fact kill himself, are they investigating how he was allowed, how that window of opportunity was afforded to Epstein at what's supposed to be the most secure prison on earth? And then you're going to have people who are just never going to believe any evidence, because we live in a world where you can't even believe your own eyes when you see the video yourself.
I'm just not going to believe that a 4-foot bunk, you can snap your neck and break it in 3 different places. I'm just not
Someone mentioned to me, if in hanging himself, he rotated upside down somehow, and then the rope pulls this way, then it could break the bones that are all, there's the medical side of it where they say that there were 3 broken bones somewhere in the neck that's more consistent with strangulation than hanging, because hanging goes up, strangulation goes down. If he somehow flipped upside down when he hung himself, I'd like to know. These are just questions that reasonable questions to ask. It takes a longer format to flesh this out for the concerns that people have, and when their concerns go unaddressed, people, it's like sort of, to some extent, it's a hockey game for people who don't personally know the people involved, and it turns on a dime, and if they don't get their way, they start booing, the inaction of the team. So the window of opportunity for results and the window of opportunity for answers that quell concerns as opposed to raise more questions, it's not an infinite open window. But we're dealing with people who I firmly believe stepped into this FBI and are blown away by the abject corruption of the institution itself, setting aside the dark nastiness of what they actually have to investigate on a day-to-day basis.
So in conclusion here, I just want to step back and say Kash and Dan have done, I think, good work in trying to present a roadmap for what they're going after. Russiagate and the cover up there, we're already starting to see small disclosures on that, like Nell Orr, Bruce Orr lying under oath to the Senate. We're seeing, obviously, Dan Bongino say, I'm going to go after January 6th, the pipe bomber. I'm going to go after the cocaine at the White House. I'm going to go after the illegal leaks from the Supreme Court that was intended to get Supreme Court justices killed and change the rulings of the court. I think those are all really, really good. How damaged is the FBI? How unfixable is this, Viva? Meaning, to just trying to dovetail to hook into your last point. Will people ever believe it, right? Will people believe it even if Kash or Dan come out with it?
That's the biggest problem in all of this, and that's what would have been one of my follow-up questions to Patel when he did it was either the Bartiromo or the Brett Baer. How fixable is the FBI? Kash seems to have a lot of faith in the rank and file. I don't think Americans as a whole have faith in the rank and file. They see them as being the ones who are doing the dirty work for the corrupt elites. The rank and file, the Kevin Kleinsmiths who falsified documents and submitted to a FISA court. Nobody has any faith in the institutions as a whole.
okay? Because this audience knows I do not have a conspiratorial bone in my body. I truly don't. Like I reject virtually all of them. I just don't. I'm just not like minded toward believing in virtually any of them. Probably too much, though, to be honest. But this is weird. Something weird is happening at the FBI, or so it would seem. So Kash Patel sat down with Bret Baier for special report last night, meaning Wednesday evening, and they got into a bit of like what's happening with the Epstein files. Where are they? Listen to this.
There are. The Epstein thing, you dealt with Maria, you said, as far as you know, he killed himself.
I'm telling you, he killed himself.
The other thing on the internet is the Epstein files. What's the answer to that?
The answer to that is the same as everything else. I'm not going to withhold information from the American public ever, but I'm also not going to rush to get it out there in a format in which they can't rely on it. So on the Epstein matter or any other matters, we are diligently working on that, and it takes time to go through years of investigations, years of political maneuvering, and years of cover-up to get the American people what they deserve. And that's what I'm going to give them on everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's him talking about Epstein. He said he believes Epstein committed suicide and that they're going through the files to make sure we get everything. This, of course, comes on the heels of Pam Bondi calling all these influencers to the White House and giving them files saying this is everything, only to find out that everything in those files was already publicly released and there was absolutely nothing new in them. Okay. Then she said the FBI's got documents we didn't know about, so we're going to get to the bottom of them. This is months ago. And now he says they're going through them. I mean, it's been a while. I'm not sure. Okay, I'm not saying he's lying. I just don't know what's happening here. I haven't figured it out. So Dan Bongino goes on Fox and Friends, and here he is talking about Epstein, SOT 12.
There is nothing in the file at this point on the Epstein case, and there's going to be a disclosure on this coming shortly. We are working through there is video. That is something the public does
There's video of him killing himself.
No, not the actual act, but the entire MCC Bay, it was only one camera. There's video that when you look at the video, and we will release, that's what's taken a while on this, we are working on cleaning it up to make sure you have an enhanced, and we're going to give the original so you don't think there were any shenanigans. You're going to see there's no one there but him. Right. There's just nobody there. So I say to people all the time, if you have a tip, let us know. But there's no DNA, there's no audio, there's no fingerprints, there's no suspects, there's no accomplices, there's no tips, there is nothing. If you have it, I'm happy to see it. There's video clear as day. He's the only person in there and the only person coming out. You can see it.
All right, Glenn, what's happening? Because it doesn't take that long to clean up, quote, clean up surveillance video from one camera of one cell. I'm not sure what's happening here. I trust Dan. I don't know Kash as well, but I trust Dan. But I'm not sure we're getting the straight scoop.
Well, I think that's the key context, is that the two people kind of being out front on this are Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, who over the last 4 years as kind of pundits and guests on podcasts and the like, have been among the most popular people in the MAGA movement, the most trusted people in the MAGA movement, and also the most militant when it came to the Epstein files. You can find tape of both of them, especially Kash Patel, saying it is an outrage that we don't have these files. The FBI director could release them today. What is he hiding? So that created an expectation that when Kash Patel and Dan Bongino got into that exact office, FBI director, deputy director, that they would then rectify what they had been so vociferously complaining about. Here we are 5 months later, and we don't actually have anything. The second thing is, I'm not somebody who really aggressively doubted that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself. I could see somebody who lived a life of luxury and living the high life, facing certain life in prison and deciding it's not worth it and trying to kill themselves. I don't really understand why people kill themselves in a federal prison, but it's happened before. But if they have proof that he killed himself, why don't they release it? That was the whole idea of transparency. And okay, if there's a video that needs work, how about the documents and the file they said they seen? But here's the biggest issue making with the Epstein file. The question that has always hovered over the Jeffrey Epstein case was he got that sweetheart deal back in 2010 for trafficking minors for prostitution from Alex Acosta. He barely went to prison, got like a sweetheart deal. And Alex Acosta said afterward, I was told he was intelligence and therefore to leave him alone. So the real question, aside from like, are there people who participated with Jeffrey Epstein that we haven't heard of yet? And I'm not sure of that. We've had a lot of client lists released and the like. Was Jeffrey Epstein working with or for foreign intelligence agencies or domestic intelligence agencies? And if they have 1,000 or 5,000 videos of Jeffrey Epstein having sex with minors, feel free to go watch those. That's not what people are interested in them. Why can't they first release those documents about who else, to whom he sex trafficked children, given that nobody has been charged with receiving the sex trafficking, only Epstein with the sex trafficking? Those are the kinds of things that I don't think we're getting very persuasive answers from. And Pam Bondi's excuse, oh, we have all these sex tapes to go through. That's not relevant to either of those questions. Go through those sex tape over years, but in the meantime, give us these relevant documents that you promised very vocally that when you got into power, you would give us.
It's starting to smell, for sure. Like when they both gave a joint interview, Dan and Kash, and they were like, no, he committed suicide. They looked like hostages. They have the disadvantage of us having heard countless hours of Dan in particular speaking extemporaneously and from the heart, and he is an honest guy, but there's certain limits to how honest you can be when you're holding these positions. And I had the same reaction that a lot of people had, which is he looks like he's not being fully transparent. What do they know that they don't want us to know? And this is the best theory I've heard, what you just espoused, that it's something having to do with Jeffrey Epstein's ties to intelligence, and that would be something they'd have to keep covered potentially, and they don't. They can't say it. They can't be.
Well, it's something we should know, though.
Like to be.
They would keep it covered, but it's something we should absolutely know. And
absolutely,
I think
but they won't tell that.
Exactly.
What if he's our asset, right? If he's our asset, like they're not going to run around saying he was our asset.
Or an ally's asset, or we should just know that is I mean, Jeffrey Epstein committed some of the most grotesque crimes involving huge numbers of American elites over many years. We should know the answer to that question. Was this an intelligence operation at the beginning or at some point in the middle? And they have those answers and we don't.
Okay, now here's a second point on the subject of the pipe bombs, which they announced earlier this week. They're going to reopen the investigation into who put a pipe bomb at the DNC offices and also at the RNC offices. And Kamala Harris's motorcade drove right by the one. So Kash Patel first on that. Do we have the SOT now? SOT 45.
Does the FBI know who it is?
The FBI, under me and Dan Bongino's leadership, has reestablished that investigations of great public importance that almost blew up the DNC and RNC in Washington, D.C., an area in which then Vice President Harris was in the vicinity of, is something that needs to be answered. And we learned that FBI leadership in the prior administration slow-rolled and basically shut that investigation off. So we turned it on. And we have some great leads, and Dan is actually going to talk about that when he does Fox and Friends tomorrow.
Okay. You don't want to give us a little something?
I can't get ahead of everybody.
All right.
So the pipe bombs are also suspicious because they were placed on January 5th at the DNC and the RNC, we believe, and discovered the next day, January 6th in the afternoon. And now here we are, 4.5 years later, and we don't have a suspect. And the question there is like, what's going on? Why don't we have a suspect on that? Like a bomb that almost took out the vice president? Like, seems like something we'd have an all hands on deck situation on under Biden and then under Trump, but we didn't. And so then we look forward to Dan Bongino going on Fox and Friends this morning because Kash Patel is the one who teed him up. Like, Dan's going to have more news on that tomorrow. And we didn't cut this out because it was so unfulfilling. I'll just tell you what he said. He was asked exactly, hey, heard there's a major break. What's the news? Quote, "We got a good tip this morning. We're going to run it out. We're not going to be able to make that public, obviously, right away because we have to make sure, we have to go through all the proper steps," which means there is no news, which means Kash Patel was just trying to bounce pass it to Dan so he could get off of the hot seat, which makes perfect sense because he looked visibly uncomfortable answering that question. And in the beginning of the question, can we just tee it up? Because when I heard it the first time, I thought he dodged. He got out of bounds at the beginning of that question. And then he kind of started a filibuster with filler and then landed it with a bounce pass to Dan. Can we just re-rack it and watch the beginning of that again?
Does the FBI know who it is?
The FBI, under me and Dan Bongino's leadership, has reestablished that investigations of great public importance that almost blew up the DNC and RNC in Washington, D.C., an area in which then Vice President Harris was in the vicinity of, is something that needs to be answered. And we learned that FBI leadership
is something that needs to be answered. No offense to Kash Patel, but that does not sound like a truth teller to me at all. Truth tellers run toward the truth. Yes, we know. No, we don't know. They don't look up and give you general statements about the FBI and general investigatory measures. Something's going on here with the pipe bomb thing. And now Dan Bongino gets on Fox and Friends and says that filler, empty stuff, which didn't advance the ball at all.
Yeah, exactly. And you notice the passive phrasing there too. Kash Patel said this is a question that needs to be answered. Like the ones who are supposed to be answering it are you and the FBI. Now, I will say, like it needs to be answered. Yeah, by you. Now, I would say in their defense that I am somewhat sympathetic to the idea that these are gigantic agencies. The FBI is sprawling with files, a lot of other people involved in this. Might take some time to get in, hire your staff, whatever, figure things out. And then, on an investigation like this, make some progress and it might take a little time. But this is not what they were saying over the last 4 years. And what bothers me is the lack of candor, as you were just saying, especially given how much trust they cultivated in people talking about these issues. Like, you should say, here are the leads we have. We haven't followed up on them. We still don't have this evidence. We think we're going to have it shortly. Here's why we don't have it. This world that they're in and all of these things that happen, like the pipe bomber and the Epstein thing, this is a very dark world where like the dark arts are practiced. And I know you're saying you don't believe in conspiracy theories. This is pretty basic about how the U.S. security state functions. And people who get into office, even at high offices, face a lot of pushback from very powerful factions who don't want things revealed that they had set out to reveal. And no matter how honest you are, no matter how strong you are, like Dan Bongino, I think is, once you get into those positions at that level and you're playing that high of a game, there's a lot of other players involved who are doing things to make you nervous, to make you intimidated, to make you scared, or just overruling you. And that, to me, is how they seem. Like, they know they're not telling their supporters what they want to hear or explaining why they can't. And so it seems like there's other things going on that they're bothered by, almost a little alarmed about, and yet not willing to explain. And that's, I think, why everybody should be feeling you're getting.
And they definitely have the disadvantage. A lot of people know Kash Patel very well and have listened to him on podcasts endlessly. I'm not one of them, but I know Dan very well. And so it's a disadvantage to Dan because we know how Dan speaks. There's no one more frank. There's no one more direct. So to hear him, try to do the dance a little is like, my spidey senses are up. I love the guy, but something's going on there. There's more news is coming. This July, there's a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio de Janeiro. The bloc of emerging potential superpowers, including China, Russia, India, and Iran, are meeting with the goal of displacing the U.S. dollar as the global currency. They're calling this the Rio Reset. As BRICS nations push forward with their plans, some worry global demand for U.S. dollars could decrease, potentially bringing down the value of the dollars in your savings. While this transition will not happen overnight, the Rio Reset could mark a pivotal moment. So learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold by texting MK to the number 989898. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no-obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the so-called Rio Reset. Text MK to 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.
Ever since the Great Awakening, thousands of content creators like myself have been burning the midnight oil well into the wee hours of the morning, and millions of us who are awake are not getting enough sleep. Everyone knows that a good night's sleep is essential for efficient functioning of the cognitive processes that enable a person to discern truth from fiction and deep state-induced woke dementia. Well, years before I was asked to be an advertiser for My Pillow, I have been using their products. The first product I used was, of course, the pillows. I was impressed with the comfort, and I was able to fall off to sleep almost immediately rather than having to fight a bag of foam and trying to get comfortable. The pillowcases and Giza sheets are absolutely the bee's knees, and I have sets for the 2 beds I have in my home. Another thing is their body pillow. I suffer from a lumbar spine injury that is exacerbated by my preference to sleep on my side. Having the body pillow to roll onto alleviates the pressure and mitigates the discomfort, allowing me to fall asleep quickly. Mike Lindell, a great American patriot, has an entire line of quality products that everyone should try. Once you sleep with the pillows and sheets, you'll throw the ones you have in the garbage or donate them to Goodwill. If you go to www.mypillow.com, there is a link in the description. As a viewer and subscriber to this channel, you can buy anything in the store for 66% off. That's 1/3 of the retail price. Just fill your shopping cart and use promo code N4T at the checkout. Take it from me, folks, I've been using Mike Lindell's products since 2015. There is nothing like them on the market, and I say this with 71 years of sleeping experience. Don't forget, use promo code N4T at checkout.